A doom loop is coming. I'm your host, Steve Van Metre, and thanks for joining me today. And a major investment bank is warning investors that the markets are about to become unhinged and could be completely unstable, which could lead to a flood of selling, or what they're calling is a doom loop. We're going to take a look at what they're saying and how this could happen. Plus, we'll look at the technicals and momentum of the market as we do every Sunday. Let's go over to Metre, where we picked today's story up with the headline, Doom Loops and Short Convexity. They warn an unhinged rally leave markets completely unstable. And part of their case here is they're saying that stocks are forced to have a crash up as people flood into the market, as all-time record call volumes were seen last week in the option space. And if you're not familiar what a call option is, it's a bet on the upside move of the market. So you're seeing now investors are doing exactly what we said they would do. If prices start to rally, they'll come flooding back in. And Metre is saying, well, that could trigger a doom loop. However, all this exuberant buy the dip has Mete's Charlie McElliott on edge as he notes actual pockets of dealer short convexity and short vol are re-entering the picture. He goes on to say that this nightmare fuel could happen and turn into a big sell-off as funds desperately try to increase their net exposure and then brutally feed into their own doom loop as they're then forced to sell. He says this dreaded spot up vol up in the U.S. equities market plays a strong part in creating a substantial negative feedback loop problem with underlying for the long short equity space in particular, which are trying to turn a net up as this rally goes unhinged. So what he's saying here is these long short funds are trying to go higher or trying to buy into the rally, and then if markets start to go the other way, well, then they have to force to short or cut their risk exposure, creating what he's calling a doom loop. And I also want to mention we do have a sponsor for today's show. If you're looking for a stock that is making some big moves and has a very low float, I'm going to give you 7 reasons why you may want to add this to your portfolio. Stay tuned to the end of the show for more information. Now let's look a little deeper in what Charlie McElliott is saying here. As Spot Gamma notes, anytime you see IV moving up in context with price, it's generally a sign of exuberance, which many would believe right now, and we'll get into the charts, is actually happening, and that creates price moves that are very hard to sustain, suggesting that this upside rally may not hold. Once the upside momentum pauses, those option contracts that we just looked at immediately start to lose value, and dealers can start to sell the stock, which presses the stock lower. So now you're getting some picture here of what's happening is the market investors are chasing this up, and dealers then, as soon as the market pauses, are looking to cut their risk exposure by selling the underlying security. All that energy builds into the move higher, then discharges immediately, as we saw perhaps on Friday, as upside momentum stops. As McElliott notes, options positioning to record delta with the impulse feeling, he says, utterly unstable. Now let's take a look at how the machines are positioned into this and if they're going to add to the demand or cause the selling to happen even in a bigger way. Here we'll start with Goldman, who notes that the CTA demand is still the driver of incremental flow. We're going to look at 2 pieces they had this week. They estimate $19 billion worth of CTA demand over the week in a sideways market. Notably, we saw the market moving higher, $34 billion of demand over the next month, assuming again the market goes sideways, and they're about to rise above the long-term trigger, which did happen at 4,083 on the S&P. They go on to say later in the week the CTA is buying $12 billion of equities at the flat tape. We know that now they've already bought some of that $19 billion, but they're concerned now about a down big move of 2.5 standard deviations over the next month that could lead to $42 billion of U.S. equities for sale. So now you start to get some of this picture that McElliott is warning about, that this feedback loop, this doom loop, could trigger a flood of selling. Now, how is Metre positioned? Well, let's take a look, because they're really not changed from last week. What we note is from their desk, they're still max long out on their positions in the equity space, which again could feed into the doom loop. How about TD Securities? You note they're fairly neutral, and neutral is a position that could go either way very quickly. So they're not really long and not really short. Market moves either way, and we'll note that that means over 4,200 look for the CTAs to buy, under 4,000 to sell. This is reflective now of the neutral positioning in the market. Let's take a look at the S&P 500 now, symbol SPY. We note momentum is indeed positive. The relative strength indicator, we want to see that over 40. It's at 63, is not quite at oversold level of 70. We've got a positive cross on the MACD, or moving average convergence divergence strategy. Momentum Timer Pro, which pulls in those plus even other signals and momentum, has to smooth out the report, has shown 19 consecutive daily buy signals. Here you see it. There's still some coupons. It's at half off to $60 a month for those of you that are looking for it. We put out a buy at open signal on January 24th at 398.88. Friday's close shows you in the positive. We look for a next upside target at 415, downside target at 394. We notate on the CTA Timer Pro report that this thing should be seeing some long positions. The CTA should be adding if markets hold up and continue to rise. Look for them to move in a big way. There are still some coupons there at the $20 price point, but not a whole lot left. Let's take a look at the charts here. Is what I want to point out on SPY is you have this beautiful head and shoulders bottom. Here you have the left shoulder, the head, and the right shoulder. That would be an inverse bottom, not obviously not a typical head and shoulders that you see on the top. Notably, the neckline here is right where price came to a stop, a previous zone of selling. So there's no surprise. Now, what could we expect here? Can we see price maybe come back down into the 407 range, perhaps as low as around 400, or even into the volume support here on the 2-year chart? Absolutely. A sustainable break above, we'll just put it here on this purple line, of around 416.83 means that this indeed is an inverse head and shoulders bottom. There's your neckline. Break higher tells us you're headed back, and perhaps even to break, if you can believe this, all-time highs here. So a lot of potential coming. Now let's take a look at tech stocks and see what we've got there. We note on Invesco QQQ, the NASDAQ 100 momentum also positive. RSI just under overbought territory at 67. MACD's got a positive cross. Momentum Timer Pro's giving you 18 consecutive daily buy signals. We note the 1, 3, and 6 month signals are showing buy across the board, same as the S&P 500. We added to our notes that buy on January 30th at 292.93. We're currently at 306.18. Upside target just above. We actually broke the upside target on the S&P 500. We tagged this. I left this from last week. We tagged it at 415. Upside target on the NASDAQ at 317. Downside target at 291. Again, CTA Timer Pro says on a historical weighting, the machines are going to have to buy this and into this rally and any further upside, again, making the case of why we could see this thing go to all-time highs. Keep in mind on the SPY, we have beautiful volume support here on the 6-month window. And again, this pullback could just be fairly shallow. How about QQQ blasted up just to the bottom of the previous supply zone? Found sellers look for a potential pullback here into 294. Beautiful amount of support underneath on the 6-month window. Let's zoom in a little bit. The 90-day window, you've got plenty of support here, showing that buyers are indeed coming into this space. Let's take a look at the bond market now. Notably, not a whole lot of positioning change here. We see from Metre, they're still short. TD Securities is just slightly short. We continue to note that we need to see a move between below 3.4% on the 10-year. And what happened, it got just below that and then bounced off of it. Not a big enough move for the machines. How about TLT? Momentum's still positive, but maybe not for long. The RSI is slowing down to 52. MACD just flagged a negative cross. Is still holding for 19 consecutive daily buy signals, so this could be just a pullback in a move higher. We still don't know positioning, although Momentum Timer Pro now has given us all the reasons to buy. CTA Timer Pro is saying, look, on a historical weighting, the machine should be flipping out of those short positions to long, putting an upside move to the bond market. What are you waiting for? A close over the 200-day moving average. Let's take a look at that chart now and see what we've got going on with TLT. We note it came off its bottoms, rallied up across the 100-day, came back down, didn't quite hold the 50-day, but rallied up. I mentioned before that it could just go sideways, and it is. This, you notice the 200 or the 50-day is trying to catch up here. The 200 days acting as resistance, and now all of a sudden there's your volume profile line on the 6-month window. At this point, if you're not in this trade or not starting to build positions, might as well wait for across the 200-day. You you get that move under to the 10-year under 3.4, and you know the machines now are likely to play chase. Let's take a look at gold here. And what do we note? The gold is slightly long. I know people are saying, wait, there's more upside potential. Look, the machines are not that long on gold. We need to see a sustainable move over 1950. We know we had a move over that, and it got rejected pretty hard there. And when we look at GLD, what do we see? Momentum positive. The RSI now, though, slowing down, headed back potentially to oversold conditions here pretty soon. Could be creating, you think about a potential buying opportunity. If you miss this rally, you want to add into the rally. You see a pullback here, pushing back into oversold conditions, and that may be an opportunity to add back in, knowing the machines are not as long as they could be here. Let's take a look. We have a buy at open on November 30th at 163. Up Friday, closing at 173. Let's take a quick look at the chart here. And what do we see for gold? We'll look at gold futures. We see it pull back here. Let's look at GLD. Why did we see this? Let's move into the 1 year. There you have it. 1 year ago, people were selling at this level. They still want to sell. If this holds up somewhere in here, we'll just go back to gold futures. You see the same 1 year chart. Say it holds around 1860 into here, this range here, and then takes off and breaks through those sellers. Now you've got a case. Gold is going way, way higher. How about the dollar? Because it lends into our sponsor a little bit. We're not going to look at a chart here, but I want to point out that what we're seeing with the CTA report is many of you don't understand quite how to use it. Those who get it are saying, wow, this report is amazing. But look at the US dollar currency on the CTA's historical modeling. It says they're cutting their short positions into a rally. What do you see with Momentum Timer Pro? It's saying, hey, it's starting to pick up some buy signals on the daily. And let's do a quick look at the charts here, because this could boost some of the sectors of the market. You see this bottom here, a little bit of bottom. We said this could be maybe a rally up to the 50-day and get rejected. Notice there's a lot of volume support sitting right there. So, all right, now I want to introduce you to our sponsor of today's show. They are called Hillstream Biopharma. And let's take a look at what this company is all about, because there's extremely low float on this. They've got some big news that came out. Let's take a look at 7 reasons why you may want to add this to your portfolio. Hillstream Biopharma, their aim is to improve the lives of patients with rare cancers, and we note that anybody playing in the cancer space, if they have a breakthrough, their stock is likely to go really high. Hillstream Biopharma, they're a biotech company developing novel therapeutic candidates targeting ferroptosis, an emerging new anti-cancer mechanism resulting in iron-mediated cell death for drug-resilient and devastating cancers. And that is going to be, again, this space we know could be big in a big way, because any news is going to take these stocks higher. And what I want to point out to you, what's really interesting about Hillstream Biopharma, they're NASDAQ listed. Where do you think these machine reading algorithms fall? That's why we like NASDAQ listed stocks, because they read it. If they see the news, as you're going to see in a moment, takes the stock higher. Again, symbol HILS. We'll put that link in the description, plus the research report, plus their website for you. But could future FDA news justify potential 1,300% climb back to its 52-week high for this little-known stock? Well, let's take a look. Here's 7 reasons why Hillstream Biopharma could be poised for significant upside. Remember, symbol HILS. Put that on your watch list. Do some research on it. Coming FDA discussions in 2023, they're intending to initiate IND discussions with the FDA in the first half of 2023. They do this as a request for clinical study to sponsor to obtain authorization. And here's the breaking news that just happened the other day. Hillstream Biopharma signs an exclusive option agreement to advance next generation anti-MUC1-C agents for resistant cancers. And I'll tell you, my friends, this took the stock up in a big way. We'll look at this in a moment. Again, this comes all back to what we talk about on the show. The machines. They read the news, they drive the stock up, and now you're seeing a position where this stock can go even higher from where it's at now. We'll show you that in a chart here in a moment. Shares of Hillstream Biopharma have already climbed over 140% in less than 1 month since hitting their 52-week low of 30 cents on December 28th and reaching an intraday high of 75 cents on January 30th, according to data available at barchart.com. So this is an actively traded stock, has significant upside potential. If it were to climb back to its 52-week high of $4.24 set on February 2nd of 2022 from their low of 30 cents, that could be a whopping 1,299% move. Of course, we note that the move back to its 52-week high is not certain, but should be noted as potential to happen. Now let's take a look at the charts here, because this is what I really want you to see, the opportunity here. So we know that this is now looking at the 1-year chart. So here you see the volume profile. We know the sellers have been above. You see, just where the company listed out here, there have been sellers all the way down, and all of a sudden, anytime it gets over $1.11, buyers step in. And here you see that 30-cent low. Here's that news release. Look at all this volume here. So we know the machines are reading the news, drove the stock higher. But here's the key part. We're going to zoom in and we're going to see some selling here. But notably, I want you to see all this volume. If this starts to break through and price starts to move through this volume, look how thinly traded this is. This thing could really shoot higher. Here you see, zooming in now, the 6-month chart. Notably how even after this big move higher and sellers came in, that we're looking at potential seller exhaustion here, as maybe they're tapped out. And see how it's holding that 6-month window? That is huge. Now let's zoom into the 10-day. So we know, of course, people were selling on that news cycle, but look what happened after. We see sellers came in, and now look what happened. Buyers coming in here. Again, you watch this stock. If you see a break over this 10-day volume profile, that's where you start to see things get really interesting here, and could really be a catalyst to see Hillstream Biopharma stock go straight up. And again, symbol HILS. Keep an eye on this. Let's go even further here, because they have an extremely low float. Low flow stocks have the potential to present volatile swings, and the market takes notice. They have just around 3.95 million shares available in this public float. And of course, we see the machines grabbing some of those and holding onto them now, looking to see if this stock can go higher as more people are taking a look at it. They've got some strategic collaborations. I'll again put a link to this in the description below for you. There's staggering market value in this space. Of course, we know the global cancer immunotherapy market is expected to reach almost $200 billion by 2030. Of course, the rising adoption of immunotherapy over the therapy options for cancer, owing to its targeted action, is anticipated to increase the adoption during the forecast period. And of course, we know that companies like Hillstream Biopharma are leaders in this space, looking to capitalize on that. And they're doing that as they're part of a major biotech cluster in a hotbed of areas where 70 new FDA drug approvals have happened between 2020 and 2021. And Hillstream Biopharma is right there in the middle of that. And I do want to mention that this is a thinly traded stock. So if you're looking to add this portfolio, I want you to understand, do your research, use your risk capital only. Look to take a position. If the stock goes higher, add to it. That's how you need to trade this. Do not go, of course, all in unless you have made that decision to be comfortable with it. But again, I want to suggest to you, use your risk capital here. Look for some upside potential. Mainly, do your own research. That's important. And with that, I'm Steve Van Metre. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being fans. Bye now.